What we do here is go back.
What's going on, everyone? So, acceptance is one of those things that I've come to learn are not so clear-cut and easy to, in a sense, pinpoint how to do. Acceptance comes, in my opinion, with a couple different levels to it, and it depends on who you're dealing with as to how far you will actually go with it. But it's one of those things that I come to notice that some people don't necessarily factor in, I would say, correctly, where people act certain ways and you expect others to act the same way that you do because you think that the way that you act is the best way to act, or might be the most beneficial way to act. So when others don't act that way, you'll get mad or upset with that person or with said people for not doing things the way that you would, yet in a sense that's part of non-acceptance. Acceptance would mean that if somebody acts in a way that you're not expecting, you allow them to do that without forcing them to change to fit the mold that you expect them to fit. This doesn't mean that you have to continue on with that person, carrying on with that person. This doesn't mean that you have to, that acceptance of the way that that person acts means that they can do whatever they want to you. You still get to choose how you're going to interact with them going forward. But it comes with a level of, some people are going to act in a way that may not be according to how I think is proper or correct or right or the best way to act. And I then have to choose whether or not I'm going to continue to deal with that person or interact with that person, or the level of interaction and dealing with that you're going to go to with that person. It's a mindset that I've tried implementing in virtually every relationship that I have, where I understand that my thought process is it's not really matching with the majority of the people that I deal with. Majority of the people that I interact with and I'm friends with and I'm cool with or talk to don't really think the way that I do. So I've come to add that part in when talking with them or interacting with them, and when we come across disagreements, it's something that I'll put into my head, hey, you think that this is the best way, so let's listen out to what they're saying, try and hear their position, and even if you don't agree, at the very least implement that when dealing with them going forward. You may not have to necessarily deal in the same way with every single person that you deal with, but you take into account, hey, this specific person acts this way or thinks this way, so when dealing with that person, then you adjust your thinking to how they are. In some ways, you don't necessarily have to do this, and in others, even though I don't think you have to, I think you should. I think some people confuse acceptance with everything is okay that you did, and that's not necessarily how I feel. To me, it doesn't make anything necessarily okay, but certain things you have to deal with, this happened, that might have sucked, that might not have been, they might not have addressed something in the way that you thought that they should have, but you raised it to them and they either accepted your objections to how they were acting and are going to adjust it accordingly, or they rejected them and are going to stand firm in their ground, which to me then will tell you how you should act going forward. But it's something that it's not as easy to do as it sounds. Alright, everybody acts differently. I think we all pretty much know that. Everybody acts differently, everybody thinks differently, even though you might find people who think very similar to you, you also are going to come across people who think very differently from the way that you do. And And in some cases, you're going to be in either intimate relationships or deep friendships with people who think differently from the way that you do. And in those cases, I think you have to employ this type of mindset, because there's going to come times where you're going to conflict with these people. And in order to resolve it, you've got to come to a compromise where you adjust your behavior or they adjust theirs, or you both adjust yours. And neither of you can adjust if you really want to, but that generally leads to a disconnect. And as you get older, that disconnect becomes increasingly harder to repair. But I think it's something that should be applied to everybody's thought process. It doesn't have to be if you don't feel like it. It may not be the most beneficial, but in my opinion, I think it is. But it's definitely something that's got levels to it, and sometimes exploring those levels and exploring the nuance of wanting other people to accept your position would mean that you also have to stand up and accept other people's positions or other people's thought processes if you're expecting others to accept yours. If you're expecting others to adjust to the way that you behave, then that means that you should be willing to adjust to the way that they behave. Again, this does not mean that you just accept whatever everybody does and let them do it, but there are certain areas where you will have to, hey, like, I think this way, but I see where you're coming from, and I will make sure that at the very least when dealing with you, if not carried out to everybody, at the very least when dealing with you, I will act in this particular way going forward. It's food for thought. I would love to hear any feedback or comments, things that may help me to improve in a sense on this position, if anything. It's much appreciated and welcomed, and I hope you enjoy. Have a good one.